Commissioner Gorelick, if you want to continue to remain in the hearing, I would ask you please to be in order.
One-sided.
Ask about Ask about who's getting contracts.
I have.
One of us on the panel. Just one of us on that panel.
I would ask you all, please.
Just one of us on that panel, please.
I understand your feelings. I also understand that this hearing has to continue in an orderly manner. I would ask you to conduct yourselves that way, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The questions I have, Mr. Mayor, and again, thank you for your appearance here today, are to follow up on the questions that Commissioner Lehman was asking. I appreciate your overarching statement that there has been continuity between your administration and your successors, but you made two choices that are in fact different from your successor that I would really like to explore and drill down on. One is in this command matrix. The fact of the matter is, and however long it took you to arrive at your matrix, when you issued it in 1996, it had, to use the basketball vernacular, very few jump balls. You basically said, in this type of incident, X is going to be in the lead. Now, that may have changed in the course of an emergency. You note emergencies are dynamic. The role of the incident commander might change. But you have a presumptive leader in each situation. In the procedures that were issued last week, nearly every, in fact, every significant incident has at least two, and in some instances as many as 5 agencies listed as the primary agency. That's a difference. Now, you, in response to Commissioner Lehman, you said, well, that's why you have OEM. But in fact, the second difference between your policies and your successors is that in your policies, the Office of Emergency Management is the on-scene interagency coordinator and does have the capacity, or did have the capacity, that you describe. In a New York Times op-ed piece, Jerry Hauer, who ran, as you noted, your OEM at the beginning, is highly critical of Mayor Bloomberg's decision to essentially downgrade and change the role of OEM from a highly operational element that's an extension of the mayor to, in his words, and I think here he's quoting Director Bruno, to a think tank. He says that, I'm quoting Howard here, Mayor Bloomberg continues to undermine the city's ability to deal with crises by weakening the role of the coordinator. And I won't quote at length, but I know that you are going to be loath to criticize your successor. But it's important for us to understand on the ground in a city like this what the proper model should be, because we will be making recommendations about this. And so I would like to ask you whether you believe the policies and procedures you set out are better or not, and what your reasons might be.
Well, I believe that the part of it that Jerry was incorrect about is that OEM still has the authority to make the choice as to which agency is in charge. And that's critical. I mean, that's the critical part of it. Whether more agencies are selected as possible incident commanders because the situation is more complex, or because on analysis after they looked at all of this, they've decided that there are. If you gave me a copy of it, it probably would help if I could just
Certainly.
see it.
Well, let me,
Because I'm really not
I don't.
as familiar with that, obviously, as I am my own.
I'm sorry, this is Mayor Bloomberg's.
That's the one I need.
And this is yours.
Okay.
And you can see the difference here.
Okay. Well, the one thing that I would clarify in this is that OEM has the authority, meaning the new United Command Matrix, that OEM has the authority to make the decision if there's any confusion about who's in charge. I mean, the citywide public health emergency, it is possible that any one of those 5 agencies, depending on the kind of citywide health emergency, could be in charge of it, whether it's HHC or NYPD, FDNY, the Department of Health. So OEM would have to make that choice. That's the thing I would clarify in this, if there's any ambiguity
because
about it.
I would note that in the procedures issued by Mayor Bloomberg, and frankly, it is consistent with the impression we were left with in the testimony yesterday, OEM responds to multi-agency incidents, participates in the command, coordinates resources from emergency support functions, relays information, and supports logistic needs. It has, shall we say, a rather less affirmative, aggressive, operational sense than it does in your more straightforward language. And maybe it is an issue of clarification, or maybe it is a choice.
But in terms of my opinion of it, I would think that's the thing that would have to be clarified. Because when a power outage, NYPD, FDNY are the possible incident commanders. It really is going to depend on whether or not there's any suspicion of terrorism or criminal activity, or whether it's just a straight blackout that we're dealing with. And if there's any confusion between the police and the fire, and the mayor isn't available, then somebody has to decide that. And that has to be OEM.
So
that has to be.
Yes, yes, sir. So just to clarify, your concern is not with the listing of multiple agencies, which is different from the plan that you put in place, but ensuring that there is a mechanism that is quite clear for determining who gets the lead if numerous agencies do show up and as listed in the
Correct.
In the protocol.
The agencies that are listed as alternatives all make sense. Aviation incident, police department, fire department, or port authority. Depending on the aviation incident, it has to be one of those running it. The real question is, if there's any dispute, you want to know immediately who's in charge, and that has to be OEM's responsibility.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.